Good morning. It's good to see everyone here. As people come in, the latecomers, it's always nice if the outside rows are available. So if you don't mind scrunching into the center, and if we get more than we can contain in here, the seats up here that are normally choir seats are available today. So you can come up and have your first audition to be in the choir. We're going to start with the morning song this morning out of the Till Hymn book, Answering the Call of Love, hymn number 1014. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit, and let's sing together, Answering the Call of Love. For those of you that are joining us online, you can find the lyrics to the hymn posted in the chat. The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith. We dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. As hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision inside. Thank you for singing. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation worship service. We welcome each of you to this celebration of love and to this congregation. The OUUC community comes together in the mutual promises and possibilities of our covenant. We envision an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Ann Radford. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the worship arts team. Leading worship with me today is Victoria Poling and Troy Fisher, our music director. Victoria is a Unitarian Universalist minister, spiritual director, and environmental justice advocate. She currently preaches at UU churches in the Salish Sea region and serves on the board of directors at Earth Ministry Washington Interfaith Power and Light. Her interfaith ministry has included hospice, chaplaincy, and community engagement with liberal Christian churches. Victoria lives in Kent, Washington on traditional Muckleshoot territory in the Green River watershed. She enjoys the music of life with her partner David, 4 cats, and a quilt of many stars. A few logistics. This service is being recorded and live streamed on Zoom and YouTube. For those of you here in the sanctuary, you can see the subtitles and view the chat on the screen in the front of the room. And if you'd like to use one of our hearing-assisted devices, please check with the tech table in the back of the sanctuary. We also ask that you turn off your devices, any sound, and if you can, turn off your Wi-Fi. It is up to each family and person how they want to participate here. There's an area with comfy chairs and fidget toys for all ages. Children of all ages are welcome in the sanctuary. There's also a nursery care and a story time program for children in the classroom wing. We are a multi-generational community, and we value our young ones. We're grateful for the many hands that helped make worship happen this morning. Thank you to the ushers and greeters, the kitchen crew, the tech team, and all who contribute in so many ways. After the service, you'll have the chance to discuss reflection questions offered by Victoria. For those online, we invite you to go into a breakout room for a virtual coffee chat. For those in person, please feel free to stay for coffee and conversation in the Commons. At 11:30, after the coffee chat, please return to the main room or the sanctuary for the OUUC board presentation. They have some exciting and timely information to share and want to hear from you. There are many things happening at OUUC from a variety of groups. Thursday community dinners and spiritual practice and book sale preparations are just a few. Check out the Tuesday electronic update or the website for the most up-to-date information. Now, let us open our hearts and minds as we prepare for worship. It is good to be together. This morning and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. We light our chalice this morning with words by Lisa Friedman. Spirit of life and love, we live in a fragmented world that tempts us to despair. We would put it back together piece by piece if it were ours to choose. But sometimes the fragments are enough. In a world of meanness, there is still power in every act of kindness. In a time of doubt, there is still power in every act of hope. In an age of division, there is still power in every act of unity. May we remember that sometimes the fragments of meaning we make are just the right size to hold in our hands.
Our opening words this morning are offered by Dory Summers, called A House for Our Dreams. May dreaming never cease for those within who know the world to be a troubled place, but dare to struggle with imperfectness toward that brighter hope, that better day. Let memories add warmth, a heritage, a quilted patchwork stitched with history of kindliness, of daring for the good, of funny moments, jokes and smiles, and tears. This is a precious place, as every home that shelters those who love and strive and share. Its blessing is in lives that meet within, in living, learning, caring, sheltered here. May we move in peace.
Let's sing together our opening hymn. It's out of the Gray Hymn Book, hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. And we're only going to sing the first verse and the fourth verse. First and fourth verse. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit For those of you joining online, you can find the lyrics to the hymn posted in the chat. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be able to share the story for all ages today. That's not something I usually get to do. So this story is called Sophia's Guest, and it's by Becky Brooks, who is a retired religious educator. Once upon a time, there was a teacher named Sophia. Nearly everyone in town knew Sophia and loved her because not only was she an excellent teacher, she was also very kind. One day, when Sophia got to work, she found a note on her desk. Dear Sophia, I'll be around tomorrow. I wonder if I might stop by your house for tea tomorrow afternoon. Your friend, God. P.S. I know you're a UU, so you can call me the Spirit of Love if you like. At first, Sophia thought it was a joke, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized it wasn't all that funny, and she couldn't think of anyone who would play a joke on her like that. But then she thought, what if it wasn't a joke? What if the Spirit of Love was really going to come to her house tomorrow? She thought she'd better get ready just in case. On the way from home, she stopped by the store and bought a welcome mat to put on her porch. When she got home, she cleaned her house and she brought in some fresh flowers from the garden and put them in a vase, and soon everything was sparkly. In the morning, Sophia realized she didn't know what the Spirit of Love liked to eat. So she baked some bread, and she made a casserole, and she made some cookies. Whew. And what about the tea? Did the Spirit of Love like hot tea or iced tea? She thought she'd better make both. And what if the Spirit of Love's favorite thing in the whole world was lemonade? Well, she made some of that too. She was so nervous, she didn't know what to expect. And just then, there was a knock on the door. Her heart went pat, pat, pat. She took a big breath, opened the door slowly, and on the other side was the mayor of the town. "Hello, Sophia. I was walking by and I smelled that delicious fresh bread." Sophia said, "Well, I'm so glad you're here. Come on in. I'm expecting someone very important, a visitor who you might want to meet. Please make yourself at home." So Sophia and the mayor sat having a nice discussion when there was a knock on the door. Her heart went pat, pat, pat. She took a deep breath, opened the door slowly, and there was a group of children from her class. "Hello, Miss Sophia. We were walking by and we couldn't help but notice the smell of cookies." Sophia said, "Well, I'm glad you're here. Come on in. I'm expecting a very important visitor who you might want to meet. Come on in and help yourself to some cookies." The children were giving the mayor some much needed advice when there was another knock on the door. Her heart went pat, 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 deep breath, open door, and it was her entire covenant group from church. "Hello, Sophia. We heard the tea kettle and all the laughter and thought you must be having a party." So all afternoon, people stopped by the house, lured by yummy smells and happy sounds. People filled the house, overflowed into the yard, made dinner together, and ate as the sun set and the moon rose. It was a great party. People played games, told stories, played music, and quilted together. Sophia had such a nice time, she completely forgot about her very important and strange guest by the time she waved goodbye to her friends that night, feeling very content. In the morning, though, she woke up and remembered everything. She was confused. Whatever had happened to the spirit of love? All during her walk to work, she smiled and waved to the people she ran into who'd been at her party, still trying to figure out what had happened. When Sophia arrived at work, she was surprised to find another note on her desk. It read, "Dear Sophia, I had such a wonderful time yesterday. The bread was delicious, the cookies divine, and tea mixed with lemonade is my very favorite. Thank you for being such a wonderful host. I hope we can do it again soon. Yours truly, the Spirit of Love."
Each Sunday, we express our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. The offering collected here does two things. It supports the ongoing work of OUUC, which is also supported by your regular pledges. This offering also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. Our Share the Plate recipient for the months of September and October is the Olympia Free Clinic. Here's what they have to share about their work. The Olympia Free Clinic is a volunteer-based organization where underserved community members receive health care services and linkages to community resources within a caring and respectful environment at no cost to them. While most of the services are provided by volunteers, our contributions go to support vaccination efforts, purchasing medication, medical supplies, and equipment. You can participate in the offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your television, on your screen. You can also mail a check to OUUC or place your offering in one of the baskets that will be passed around by the ushers. Our community partners continue to need our financial support. May the offering now be generously given as it is gratefully received. Thank you for your generous gifts. I'll take my mask off. We came together this morning bringing all that is in our lives. In this space, we share from our hearts what brings us joy and sorrow, what brings us worry and delight, what makes us afraid and what makes us dance. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of life as we place stones in the water of community. You'll hear a drum beat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat together and we create the heartbeat of community. Right now, I invite you to take a breath. As we open our hearts to receive the complexity of all that is in our lives. We have this from Zoe Meyer. Please join me in lifting up the life of my aunt, Augie Petroff, who died last week at the age of 103. She lived a life of kindness and generosity and social activism. She was born on the same day and the same year as Pete Seeger. She was very proud of this. Augie and I were not related by blood or marriage. Sometimes the family you choose is the most precious. Zoe, we hold you in our hearts and send you our love. Nancy May shares her deep gratitude for all those who prayed for her health and well-being. Nancy says that the symptoms of her lung fibrosis have lessened now, and she is having a better time of it. Nancy feels blessed to be a member of this OUUC community. Nancy, we are blessed by your presence and wish you continued comfort and ease. We celebrate with Fred Kellogg and Beatrice Owana Kellogg as they mark their one-year wedding anniversary. Their anniversary was a joyous, joyous day, and we celebrate their happiness in finding each other. Happy first anniversary, Beatrice and Fred. For those online, I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat. This is a time to share all that you wish, whatever is shared from your heart. Those in the sanctuary can see your sharing on the screen. For those in person today, I invite you to come forward if there is something you would like to bring into the community, you may place a stone in the water as you hold your sharing in your heart. Please come up through the center aisle and return by the side aisles. For those gathered in the classroom, you may make your way to the sanctuary or use the bowl and stones that are in the room with you. Let us hear the heartbeat of our community and reach out in love and care to all those who share this morning. We place a stone in the water for all that has been shared online in the chat. We will place one more stone in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken.
Spirit of love, we are grateful to be together in community, each of us bringing the pieces of our joys and our sorrows to be shared, so that we might set down our burdens and lift ourselves up and let ourselves be wrapped in a warm quilt of community. I invite you now into a time of contemplation, meditation, and prayer. Let us hold a moment of silence together.
invite you to remain seated as we sing together, Spirit of Life. Hymn number 123 in the Gray Hymn Book.
Today's reading is a poem written by our guest speaker, Victoria Poling, called Pieces of Stars. This, then, is the covenant, a promise in which a mysterious spirit of life commits to giving you pieces of a world with which to warm yourself. Gives you hair, makes furry animals and woolly plants, gives you cold, socked in fog, seasons of damp, gives you a need for warmth. In your heart, you have something to share now, a need, it is so cold, a promise, yes, I will reach out, an idea, I will get warm. Will you be disappointed and bitter, disparaging the cold? Or will you make a promise to live with the bitter need, sending your tender heart into the world, seeking layers of holding and care, using the imagination and sense you've been given to say, yes, I will notice. Yes, I will feel. Yes, I will think and wonder and touch this world. As you are touched by the cool air, as you run your hands through the coats of furred friends, a dog, a cat, perhaps you rub your fingers together with the fur, making a thread. And you will wonder who gives you this idea of thread to weave into squares. And will you wonder who gives you this idea of thread to weave into squares? Gives you the ancestral idea of quilt, generations who learn to make a whole out of fragments, messy, thrifty, neat. And you can't warm yourself alone, you know, so open your hands and look up. Here is your heart, and here are the people. Open the doors, and here is your promise, your need, your idea already known in the people's hearts. The people are beginning to make a thread, already knowing to make a thread, and weave fabric, already knowing to make fabric, and to stitch the pieces together, already knowing how to stitch, quilting a blanket of layers upon layers, warm air caught between the baffles, threads catching and holding the frayed edges of sorrows, straight from the heart of loss and exile. Images stitched in many colors, straight from the heart and joy of belonging. Stepping back when the vision is filled out, to quietly marvel at the beauty of this constellation, a new creation of sewed stars, a galaxy in which to wrap each of your quivering bodies, vulnerable and earthly, exactly as you are, enlivened by this promise that you are a piece quilted into the vast, eternal whole. This ends our reading.
Story this morning. Teacher Sophia struggles when she receives an invitation from a mysterious guest who is so vast she can hardly imagine it. The spirit of love. She's a little scared and a little bit excited. Is someone about to play a trick on her, or could this be real? In spite of her fear, she prepares for the visit. Sophia could be any Unitarian Universalist choosing to respond to an invitation from love. That willingness to be open, the loving acts of preparation she makes, these are examples of how someone might act within a UU covenant. This practice of covenant, of mutually loving relationships, comes from hundreds of years within our faith tradition, of encouraging one another to trust that there is a love of which we are a part, and that this love promises somehow to invite itself into our lives and our relationships. A covenant is a mutually sacred promise. I'm sure you've heard that definition before. So I'd like to talk about three aspects of this promise today. One is covenant as a behavioral agreement between people. Another is the covenant with a reality that is beyond the human community. And the third is the promise of invitations from that mystery of love that are going to come our way. I think we all understand that covenants as behavioral agreements are deeply important in our religious context. It's really not automatic for each person or each somewhat homogeneous group of people to know how to behave when interacting with folks whose life experiences are and have been very different from ours. This is something that we learn to do and we choose to learn. In our tradition, there are historic power differences and dynamics that are both oppressive and liberatory. So we make promises about how we will behave towards one another. We promise that we'll organize ourselves in a community of communities using governance processes that are still rooted in practices designed by Unitarian Universalist religious ancestors, such as those found in the Cambridge Platform of 1648. I like this image of covenanted community as a quilt. You can easily imagine many different patches and colors. Actually, you don't have to imagine. There's one right behind me, which I didn't know when I was preparing today. And you see how the patterns are different on each of the swatches and the colors. And there are boundaries between each of those swatches of fabric. Yet, we agree as a community to allow ourselves to be stitched together side by side, next to each other, into a larger whole for our mutual benefit and support. The quilt is a whole where no patch is made invisible. No patch can choose to be invisible. Look, you can see every patch on that quilt. Your choice to be part of the whole quilt means that your commitment and willingness to be accountable within a covenant is what makes you a Unitarian Universalist. That means that your freedom to speak and believe according to your own conscience is sometimes balanced and sometimes in tension with your love for the people to whom you are accountable within the community. UU is not a faith of orthodoxy, which means right belief, where it depends on what you believe to be here. UU is a faith of orthopraxy. That might be a new word. Orthopraxy, right practice or conduct. In this public space of church, we learn and practice many processes. If you've ever served on a committee, you know what I mean. We have processes for making choices together, processes for listening, processes for speaking and sharing our experience, and processes for living out our values together by putting them into action for justice. Learning how to be together in process and renewing our promise to practice together is what makes UU a chosen faith. When we choose to orient towards each other, that is a faithful act. Reverend Alice Blair Wesley's research on historic covenants reveals that this understanding goes back to early written congregational church covenants from the 17th century, which were very interested in the theology of organization, how churches should organize themselves in a spirit of mutual love, and who in the churches should have authority, and why. Our faith's covenantal way of organizing has deeply impacted the way in which democracy has unfolded in the United States, which is why it may seem familiar if you're new to Unitarian Universalism, yet hard to articulate. It's the water that US citizens swim in. For example, two historic political documents, the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut of 1639 and the Massachusetts Body of Liberties of 1641, written and adopted by Congregational church founders, served as models for the US Constitution. The covenantal teaching of the Congregationalist Church was carried over and applied to civil government. So our religious understanding of UU covenant today is bound up in the wider community of which we are a part, the political covenant between the United States government, representatives, and citizens. And as such, it also has all of the problematic issues that come along with that. That's part of what the promise of UU covenant is about. Another part of covenant, as Reverend Victoria Weinstein notes, is for a covenant to be religious and rooted in our theological history and context, it needs to refer us to a reality beyond the human community. Our seventh principle recognizes that capital R reality as an interdependent web of all life, of which the human community and the earth systems are a part. And our Universalist theological heritage calls us to practice loving this web, loving our neighbor, and loving ourselves as a reflection of that larger love of which we are a part. Of course, there are times when it is hard to open our hearts to this love. We say in those times that we are heartbroken. Those are times when we may stand out in the cold, as it were, and we stand on the outside of covenant, looking in, feeling angry and hurt and confused, sometimes resigned to feeling excluded. And that's where spiritual practice and processes come in as a way for us to get warm. When trust is broken, we need to know what works for each of us and what works for us together as a community to reopen our hearts to the promise that there really is a larger love, a spirit of love that holds us. Our early Unitarian and Universalist ancestors chose spiritual practice and growth in trust and confidence and thoughtful discernment as their path to loving relationship with the God of their understanding. And this was radical because at that time it was thought that human nature was depraved, and it was thought that one had to have an ecstatic conversion to God. So this was a different kind of path. For us today, we can think about this spiritual practice as a way to return to feeling cared for, comforted, in right relationship with ourselves when we're in a place where we can reach out to each other again. Remember the hymn, and we'll sing this in a moment. When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I am angry, will you embrace me? I'm sure you can think of a time when you've been hurt and you were able to practice new life. Oh, we have needs. We have needs. And you were able to be held and reassured through maybe someone else, a connection, a friend, you made a phone call, or maybe through your practice of going for a walk, coming into relationship with the wider web of life and nature, or getting creative, putting your hands in some dough and baking or building something, maybe listening to music and singing. When enacted with intention, and repetition, these kinds of actions become a spiritual practice, a learning tool for pausing and stepping back, becoming open and getting curious enough to ask questions. And we're known for our questions, aren't we? So we need this kind of grounding in something bigger than ourselves and a way to connect to the warmth and care within and without in order to do that harder work of covenant, to repair and reconcile, to set boundaries, ask for just consequences, and also to forgive. So what do you do when nothing seems to be working? You followed the process, you've been practicing. When you just can't get calm, there seems to be no comfort, folks aren't listening to you, conflict is out of control, because this can happen, right? There's a third aspect of covenant that may help with this. Theologically and historically, our Universalist and Unitarian Christian ancestors understood that the covenant was actually initiated by a larger love who invites us to be in relationship with all life and with each other, to become a people of that love. So the promise of covenant is to trust that when nothing's working, we can stop and wait and breathe and listen for something unexpected to come from that loving source. I want to go back to our story today and remind you that it's not Sophia, the teacher, who sets out to try on loving in a different way today. No, she gets a letter, a mysterious invitation to which she responds. So she's demonstrating that attitude of trust that allows her and allows us to make the choice to open up. When love comes to call, we open our hearts. That said, can you imagine being open to some wild spirit of love coming to your house? It seems like the stuff of fairy tales. How would you meet a guest like that? I know I'm not in a place where I have the capacity to do all the things Sophia did. My life these days feels more like a patchwork quilt of resources. I'd probably make the tea, and I'd ask my partner David to make the scones, and if he was busy, I would pick some up from the store. I'd borrow folding chairs from my neighbors who like to party, and then I would simply say, here I am, doing the best I can do, and I am ready to host you. And when you get here, then I'll nudge my cat out of the chair and you can sit down. And that would have to be enough, right? The capacity we have to respond to unexpected calls is limited. There's a lot going on in our everyday lives, right? Sometimes it feels like we're just trying to hold those pieces together. The point is, You don't have to have a lot of time or even a lot of energy or special knowledge to practice saying yes to love. It starts with an intention. And in this story that we heard this morning, Sophia's choice has delightful results. Her baking attracts neighbors, children, even her covenant group. And who can resist the smell of something delicious baking? What's noteworthy is that her circle widened beyond the school and the children she teaches, beyond her church covenant group. It included the governing authority of her town, the mayor, and all these people came to connect up, to celebrate and share a meal. So her smaller circles became that interconnected, interdependent web. Love made a way to connect all these people where there hadn't been a way before. Stitch them up into a quilt. So this then are 3 aspects of our UU practice of covenant today. And I want to emphasize that it really rests on learning to love in concrete ways. Sophia's ways of embracing and offering love were to teach and to bake and offer hospitality. And there are many ways to offer love. And I trust that you all have at least one, if not many ways that you've already learned to love and that you still can commit yourself to learning. So there's one invitation I'd like to invite you to consider that is timely. This fall, our UUA Article 2 Study Commission invites us to respond to reimagining Unitarian Universalism. We're being asked to take a look at the values behind our covenant and to put love at the center of these values. I wonder if this is a little bit like the story we heard today. Are we being asked to be ready for the Spirit of love to come to our congregations and connect up our congregations in new ways so we can love each other better? Will you and I arrange our lives in such a way that we can welcome that love, no matter who it is who comes to call? May it be so.
Let's join together in singing our closing hymn. It's out of the Teal Hymn Book, hymn number 1012, When I Am Frightened. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit. And if you're joining online, the lyrics to the hymn can be found posted in the chat.
Will you be strong?
by Sarah York. If you are online and you have a chalice or candle, please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and, renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown.
Let's join together in singing our Unison Benediction.